All right, so let's move to the finance side of the world. Consulting over. So let's into the finance landscape in India. So finance is a very broad industry to look at. So these are the kind of, wait, let me check my questions right. Yep. So these are the kind of industries divisions which are there, and we'll go at it one by one. So first let us look at the left side. On campus you would see a lot of roles which come into these three domains. At least during my time in the PS system, there were a lot of companies in risk management, ops and reporting, and a few in investment banking as well. Engineers mostly are taken for the risk management and ops reporting part, given that you have some coding technical prowess which you can use and automate their processes. The sad part about the Indian investment banking or finance landscape is that India is a great back office, great mid office. Why that is the reason is that there are not a lot of companies in India which can help build that investment banking fee. So when we talk about say the US market, a very broad comparison would be that they have S&P 500, we have Nifty 50, right? So at least 10x times the blue chip companies which they have, right? So in India, investment banking is a small shop, and not a lot of people are operating in it. But you will see a lot of back office and mid office, and that is a great place to start if you're starting out of your engineering college. So investment banking is there. What they usually do is they come in when there is a M&A deal. IPO proceeds are to be pulled up from the market. When a company has to raise some debt, and again there are a lot of products which an investment banker deals in, but usually it is whenever there is a deal making happening or a company wants to do something, raise some money from the market, then an investment banker comes in between, raises the debt, the equity from the market, and takes the fee. In India, through the PS system in my time, there was this JP Morgan CRG division, which was the middle office of JP Morgan. So again, how this operates is that if in a team of JP Morgan investment bankers in New York, there are 10 people on a deal. Again, 7 people will be from New York, 3 of them will be from India. So this is how it typically operates. During my time, the weekends were typically off, so it was a great place to be in. You can switch teams, however, that is not seen very frequent in these investment banking roles. People often try to stay into one vertical, and then they try to go up the ladder, and then try to convert for the front offices. So, for example, in my team, there were people who moved to Hong Kong, Australia, and New York in a span of 2 to 3 years. So, very good place to start in the middle offices of Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan in India. Risk management is another domain where a lot of roles were there. So in risk management there is no front office or a back office. Risk management is the only office which operates, and it is a typically support system to the complete bank. So there are different types of risk which you would study in DRM or FRAM course. Credit risk, liquidity risk, treasury risk, hundreds of types of risk, and these risk management teams are responsible for hedging those risks or ensuring that the compliance which the regulator puts in is being met properly. So these are risk management roles. It is a bit difficult to say what kind of exits you can have in risk. I have seen people that who are in risk management just stay in risk management, so they keep on switching these companies, or they try to move to the consulting companies where they are then responsible for risk advisory. However, you would typically not see people moving from risk management to investment banking. Very rare, unless and until you have a CFA or an MBA in your pocket. Finally, we have ops and reporting roles. So generally these are the roles where you have to automate the processes. So for example, a trading desk which sits in London, they send in a lot of data after their trading hours, and the ops and reporting teams are responsible for generating certain insights from there or compiling that data and making it compliant according to the regulatory authorities. So this is what an ops and reporting team does. So not a great place to be in, good place, not a great place to be in, but in order to move out from there, you will again need a lot of other tools in your pocket like an MBA. So these are the typical roles which you will see in an investment banking. And there is commercial banking. Let me check if there are any questions. None. Right. So in commercial banking, so for example, JP Morgan Chase and Company. So Chase part of it is the commercial banking part. So commercial banking often has verticals like, so again, commercial bankers are also the bankers to corporates, where you are handling their treasury, you are handling their day-to-day operations. For example, a company, for example, a steel company in India wants to do some acquisition in London. So that acquisition and M&A deal part of it is handled by investment bankers, whereas the day-to-day finances of that company are being held by the commercial banker. So how much money do they have, how much interest are they getting, should the company be paying dividends right now, if they want to pay dividends 7 months down the line, and they want to hedge the currency risk, then what kind of products can be given there. So a lot of products portfolio under the commercial banking domain. Good place to start in. A lot of people even from B schools get into these commercial banking of the top brands like Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, etc. You would see that the work life balance is typically better in these commercial banking roles, and these commercial bankers are a great exit to this corporate finance role, which we will be talking about shortly. Then we have retail banking. Again, retail banking has that Indian flavor as well, where you will be joining, let us say, Axis Bank or HDFC, and you will be responsible for a book, let us say the asset side or the liability side. You will be joining, let us say, a person who is responsible for sales of loans or credit cards. Those kind of roles are often heard in the retail banking part of it. So again, in industries like banking and consulting, you are selling something. Either you are selling it, or your MD is selling it, or the executive director is selling it. So do not be afraid of the sales part of it. If you are not selling anything, then you are paying with the hours you are putting in. So be cognizant of that. Then we have corporate finance. A lot of people really like these kind of roles where you are working in the finance domain of a big company, say an HUL, ITC, etc. And HUL, ITC actually come on campuses for their corporate finance roles. So you will be handling the treasury, the whatever finance part of a company is, you will be handling that, and you will be working directly with the commercial bankers and sometimes with the investment bankers. So investment bankers usually come in whenever there is a deal making, and commercial bankers guys are usually for the day in operations, transactions, cross-border deals, etc. So commercial bankers usually exit to these corporate finance roles. Work-life balance gets much better. Work is much better predictable there. So that is the second category of role in investment in finance, where you can have a better work-life balance. Then we have some high finance jobs which are starting up in India. There is private equity. So a private equity is an alternate investment fund, and what they usually do is they invest in companies. They take significant ownership in a company, they change the management, they turn around the company, and then they sell it. So a company which is not doing good but is able to generate some profits, that private equity will acquire that company, change the management, make it super profitable, and then sell it. That is what a private equity does. Then we have a venture capital. Venture capital invests in a startup. Usually it will be investing in, say, 100, 150 startups in a hope that 2, 3, 4 of them will become rockets, and then they will give them the returns, or at least try to cover the losses from the other companies in the portfolio. In venture capital, what I have usually seen from my friends of my batch, there are two kinds of teams. There is a finance team, and then there is a no question yet. Yeah, there is a finance team, and then there is a growth business side of team. So the finance team will be responsible for carrying out the due diligence, responsible for the valuation, talking to the legal teams, the regulator, etc. And then the business and growth teams are generally responsible for finding the startups which these VCs have to fund. So you will be responsible for talking to entrepreneurs, building that funnel of companies. For example, there are 1,000 companies. You will be interviewing, let us say, 700, finally investing in 150 with the hope that 2 or 3 of them will give you the results. So that is how a private equity differs from a venture capital. Again, private equity, venture capital jobs in India are very less. Even in B schools, you would not find a lot of them. So generally people from investment banking or consulting companies exit to these roles. Having worked with certain financial sponsors, so financial sponsor is say a venture capital or private equity firm, in your consulting career or your investment banking career, coupled with a CFA and an MBA in finance, is the usual profile that I've seen in these two kind of companies. Again, you would see people who switch after 2 or 3 years in venture capital if they have worked in a startup. So a venture capital would usually expect you to have worked in a startup if you are trying to join the business and the growth side of it. For finance side of it, you would generally see investment bankers or consultants, no, sorry, not consultants, investment bankers with a CFA joining in. Then we have hedge fund, quant fund. So these are the desks which can invest in anything in the world. I haven't really seen India focused hedge funds a lot. I have seen people who join in, say, JP Morgan Quant, Goldman Sachs Quant, or I have seen people who join the hedge funds which are situated out of Singapore or Hong Kong or New York. But this is a category of job which pays you a lot. Usually, in my investment banking cohort, there were people who pursued masters in finance from US and then they joined hedge funds in US. So what a typical hedge fund does is it can take leverage, it can take debt from the market and invest in anything, whatever is there under the sun, and then try to exit those positions for a profit. So that is hedge fund for you. Usually you would require finance plus maths plus coding kind of a background to crack these roles. Then we have asset management. Asset management is in India. We have started seeing a lot of companies which are focusing on private wealth, which are focusing on high net worth individuals. So these are asset management companies which are now starting their wings of high net worth individuals. Asset management companies are also which give you the mutual funds. So for example, HDFC has the HDFC AMC, the asset management company, has an HDFC mutual fund. So Axis has started their high net worth individual fund as well. Another kind of an asset is a REIT, a real estate investment trust, and in India these type of companies have started coming up. So a REIT is a real estate investment trust in which a company owns a real estate asset and then they try to give ownership to people like us in small units. So for example, a mutual fund worth 100 crores, it gives us units of say 100 or 500, right? That is how a REIT also works. So new kind of asset which is in the market. And finally are the portfolio management services. Again, a lot of people are showing interest in these portfolio management services because there is a flush of money coming in from the middle class right now, which is growing. So if you have a portfolio worth say 50 lakh plus, 1 crore plus, and you want to have a portfolio which hedges you from kinds of risks which might be there, also helps you save for the future, also helps you retire. So there are people who have started their portfolio management services and help you tailor-made solutions, help you with tailor-made solutions. Whoa. So next, let's talk about the India story. Yeah, so the India story is that 70 to 80% of the jobs, again, I would say finance it's a lot higher. 80 to 90% of the jobs are mid offices, back offices. Mid offices investment banking, if you're getting in, great, 100% go for it. If you're entering risk ops reporting kind of a role, try to seek an exit if you want to. Again, it's up to you, but again the money is usually in private, the like money again is in all the kind of roles there, but it is a common notion that you would get paid the most in hedge funds, followed by private equity, venture capital, because there is a carry part of it. What carry means, that you will be given certain proceeds from the deal if it takes place. So if a private equity company acquires, let us say, company A, and 7 years down the line it exits, you would be getting some proceeds from that exit and not only your fixed salary. There's a question? No, there's no question. Then again, investment banking pays well. Then we have commercial banking, followed by, I would put corporate finance and retail banking and all of these roles in the same category. One part of it is pay, the other part of it is growth. In investment banking, you would often see that the risk and reporting roles may be paying more in the PS right now. Investment banking roles might be paying you, let us say, 70 or 80% of it right now. However, the kind of exits that you get from those middle office IBs, or the kind of salary growth which you can expect, would be much higher compared to a risk role or a reporting role. Situations vary company to company, but this is generally the trend. You can ask anyone in the finance industry and they can vouch for the same fact. Types of roles, yes. So we were talking about the front office, mid office, back office. So front office is again the where if you are in New York, you are talking to a New York based company, your team is talking to it, you are the front office, you are client facing, you have higher pressure, you will be working on the weekends. That is there. Mid office is what I talked about, the offshoring of work in India, where you will be working directly with the team which helps these clients. That is a good role. You can exit to front office roles pretty easily, because investment banking talent in the industry is limited and it takes a lot to train a talent. So it is better if you join a mid office, you become a cheap talent for them right now, you work for them for a couple of years, and then because you are trained on the same kind of skill set, you can be easily absorbed in these front office roles. Then we have back office and operational roles, whatever I talked about in the ops and reporting part, those are the typical back office and operational roles. Is CG more important than minor offshoot for PS2 and placements? Yes, sir. At least in my time, the funnel was that first your CG will be seen and then your offshoot will be seen. Even in B schools, CGPA is the supreme criteria to be looked at, and even if you're applying for off-campus roles, if you have a 998, 999 kind of a profile, that helps. Sadly in BITS, there's a PS system where an 8.2 versus an 8.4, the 8.4 guy or the girl would get better practice score. However, in real life, if you're in say 8 to 8.5, 8.7 kind of a bracket, it means the same. For PS2 and placements, definitely CG is more important. Companies, you will get to know them. We have the first category of the bulge bracket investment banks. These are JP Morgan. So the general mnemonic is MGM, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan. These are the typical bulge brackets. Then we have Bank of America, Deutsche Bank. Whatever companies you see in the PS2 list, most of them are the global banks there. There are certain Indian investment banks as well which pay well. They have good deal flow. So you can look at say Avendus, O3 Capital, Ambit, JM Financials. So these are companies which might not be coming to BITS right now. They do come to B schools, and you can try to work in these companies as well if you are joining, let us say, a middle office of an investment bank. And often the HR partners as well will start approaching you for joining these front offices if you have a good profile, decent grades, all that. What kind of companies you can expect in commercial banking? Again, most of the banks, MNCs have their commercial banking arm as well. Retail banking, you can expect the Indian banks. Usually you would see a lot of Indian banks coming to B schools which recruit for the retail banking side. Corporate finance, most of the MNCs, the big brand, let us say Cummins or Siemens, Google, Amazon, all of them have a corporate finance team. What kind of roles they offer differ, but all of them will have a corporate finance team and a good place to work, good place to exit from a commercial bank or an investment bank. Private equity, venture capital, hedge fund, asset management, again, I cannot give you proper classification, but see, Blackstone is a private equity firm, Sequoia Capital, which turned to Peak XV, is a venture capital firm, Kalari Capital, Bloom. So all of these are venture capital funds. So again, if you want to talk about these companies in detail, we can have a catch up offline. Again, I do not have a lot of exposure to asset management or PMS. I have just read or heard from my seniors, but I can help you definitely in screening some companies if you are trying to interview in them, or can give you definitely a good overview around what the investment banking, mid office, back office, front office kind of a landscape is right now. After the companies is how big is the career, where to go next. Investment bankers exit to these parts, these two. This is the typical exit which people look for. I, coming from an investment banking program, joined an MBA, and I was screened by investment banking companies as well as consulting companies. So if you want to switch your career from finance to consulting, MBA will help you out there. If you want to switch to private equity, venture capital, you will have to have front office work. A lot of these companies will ask for front office exposure, and then they will also see what kind of credentials you have. If you have worked on some deal in the front office in say the TMT space, TMT is technology, media, telecom, and you are interviewing for a private equity which invests in this industry, then that is a very good synergy to have. If you want to stay in investment banking or commercial banking, corporate finance kind of a role, then usually your promotions again are every year you will be every 2 years you will be promoted to the next cycle. So from an analyst to associate, then from associate to say AVP in the next 3 years. Every company will have their own distinction. 2 to 3 years is a general time when you will get your promotion, and the top tier of the finance landscape is the managing director. At MD level, you will have to sell deals. So you will be meeting your company counterparts, let us say once every quarter, twice every quarter, and you will be pitching in ideas that we think that you should be pursuing an M&A right now in the industry, given that your competitors are doing it, or given that this is the macro trend in the market right now. So usually 12 to 13 years to become the managing director. However, you have to aim for a managing director in a front office role. In a mid office role, generally you would see that the peak position is the executive director, one level lower the managing director. Where to go next? Again, private equity, venture capital is one place. A lot of people also join startups, but these are not the people who have been in this industry for 4 or 5 years. These are generally people who are, let's say, a couple of years into the industry, are just an analyst or junior associates in the investment banking domain, and then they join these startups in the founder's office, growth office, strategy office. This is where they go. I've seen such exits during 2021. Again, that was a time when startups were hiring in plenty. So that is another kind of an exit. Finally, how to get in? The PS program is great. I'm sure no companies come for final placements in the finance domain. However, if you want to interview with these companies, again, referral is the next thing to look at. Right now, a very lucrative industry are the NBFCs, the non-banking financial corporations. So, for example, Geo Financial Services, which started last year in collaboration with BlackRock or Blackstone, I don't remember, sorry. So, last year, and they were on a hiring spree. So, they were pulling in people from the investment banking and finance backgrounds. So, you can push in your resume through referrals. And the next step is again an MBA, which is a platform where a lot of non-tech companies come. In a engineering school like BITS, you would see a plethora of technical roles, and that should be the case. In a B school, all the roles are non-tech. All the roles are from consulting, finance, sales and marketing, HR, etc. So better roles, I wouldn't say better roles, but you would see that the number of companies are higher in a B school per student for a non-tech role. The role is higher. For example, JP Morgan mid office hires at junior analyst in BITS. It would come at an analyst position in a B school. So that is how you get in. Again, the same 3 parts. Referrals generally work in cycles where there is a lot of hiring happening, and they have already hired from B schools and the tech schools. Then you will have an opportunity of applying through referrals. So what I know is that there is this CFA society in India, which also has some meetups where people from different industries come in, so you can network there and start working. However, before how to get in part, you should be focusing on the skills, the resume that you should be having. Right now in college you have ample amount, so that you can be prepared for these roles whenever you want to. Right, so it's 11:22. I'll stop sharing my screen and then we can take any Q&A if you have. I'll be here till all of you drop off, and then we can have another meet some another time